Alright, I'm here, just getting organised, making sure everything is running correctly. You know the normal story while I do my sound check and so forth. And of course make sure that YouTube can actually process my face. It's a little bit on the warm side here. And once the ad is finished playing, I'll be able to actually check everything. Oh, wonderful. Okay, skip past that. Hi Darren, hi Sector Black. How's it going, Scott? I want to skip over to my face to see if YouTube can cope with that today, or whether it's going to go completely bananas. I don't think Fred... No. Spanish is not... I have enough trouble with the English language because I'm contending with my own language, which is New Zealand or Kiwi Oxford English, and then North American modified English. So it can get a bit confusing at times. But Spanish, no, I don't speak that. Okay, so I'm going to present you with a topic which I haven't really seen on YouTube. As it happens, Jeremy Crawford has started talking about that this particular topic in a little bit in Unearthed Arcana. And so what I want to do is I want to present you with my variant house rule, essentially, that I use, that I adopted. And I just want to warn people that, these live streams, we need to consider them as potentially the last of them, because who knows what will happen. There's going to be a huge ramifications as of December. And you will have noticed I have stopped producing a lot of content, and that is because I am prepared, hopefully, that if things go badly, that videos might get deleted or the channel might get shut down. Because, if you're not commercially viable, you can be removed. And so I just want to make it clear to you guys, let's utilise the time we have while it still lasts. Okay, so you'll find the start time for this video down in the description for those of you who want to skip past all of this and want to rewatch it at a later date. The thing is, you have to be subscribed, hit the bell button, and you also need to make sure you have hit your notifications button so that you can actually go back and check out the live streams, because they do go unlisted. If you're a patron, then you'll get access to the live streams because I put that on the Patreon page. I do put out a edited version for all of my live streams and the topics that I cover, but that's an edited version. It does not include the Q&A or questions and answers from the community and the feedback from the community. So you don't get any of that kind of feedback if that's what you wanted. And often their feedback is incredibly useful. Okay. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams before, what you'll find is, and we'll talk about this at the end of this presentation, but what you'll find with my presentations is I usually show my face, I do a lot of slides and images, and then once I've done that, I then open up for questions and answers, and I'll bring back the camera and you'll be able to actually see my face rather than a talking head the whole time around. Okay, all right. Okay, right, so everything seems to be working fine. We'll just skip past all of that. And I think I've got it all sorted out as of today, which is good news. I'm glad. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Today's topic is retraining characters in Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And this is my variant rule. I suppose you could call it a house rule. I'm going to call it a variant rule myself. I don't think it really matters whether you call it a house rule or a variant rule. It's something that I use. And it's not something that I just made up myself. It's actually been created by somebody else. So I have actually just appropriated that idea and expanded on it. So the first thing with my variant rule with regard to retraining, and that is I apply this at all levels of play. I don't have any restrictions on what level the character is in terms of them retraining their character class and so forth. One of the aspects to retraining that I have made sure to adopt and make clear to my players, and that is I allow my players to change absolutely everything on their character sheet except their name, their gold, their equipment that they're carrying currently on their character sheet for whatever character they have. This means that we don't wind up with the character being completely remade or with a completely new character, which I find more disruptive sometimes than just having them make slight adjustments to their character, or even major adjustments. One of my stipulations when I use retraining is that it can't be done during a game session. If they're going to make any adjustments and changes to their character, they need to let me know, of course, but they need to do it before the game starts, or after the game session, but certainly not during the game. One of the things I have found is a few players will show up for the game session and say, oh, can I just quickly make some adjustments to my character because I know you do retraining, and I will say, well, we're starting in 5 minutes, so no. Do it after the game session. So if you wind up with this happening at your table, if you implement this rule and this variant rule, look, if they show up at the session and they haven't made those changes already, then that's probably not going to happen. If they've made the changes and they didn't inform you, then sometimes I won't allow that, particularly if they have adopted something I did not actually stipulate was part of the game when we had our session 0 and we formally sort of decided we would play together. There are a few things that I don't worry about. I stripped away everything that I thought was just going to create problems for myself, and I just don't worry about these things. It's up to you how you approach things, but I have stripped away everything I thought was honestly just traditional or wasting my time, or I didn't really need to hang on to. The first one is I don't worry about them having to take a short or long rest before they make adjustments or retrain their character. So it is not stipulated that, at the end of the game session there needs to be a short rest taken or a long rest taken before retraining can occur, obviously outside of gameplay time. So I don't stipulate that. Another thing that I don't worry about, and I know a few people will be upset by, is I don't worry about in-game story logic. Is it logical that they would have changed the nature of their character in terms of their training, their class, even their race? Is it story logic? Is it gone out the window? I don't worry about that sort of thing. All I care is their character has the same name and the same gear, because I don't want them abusing my good nature with regard to how much gold they might have on their character, how much they might have in terms of equipment, whether that be because I've allowed them to have magic items in advance at a certain level or anything like that. So I don't worry about game story logic whatsoever. Another aspect to the game that I don't worry about, and that is the logic of character development. I eliminate that. I know a lot of people find that difficult to swallow, but I just don't see the point, because I don't worry about a lot of different things nowadays. I used to in the past because I was told that was the way it was supposed to be done, and it had to be done that way. But honestly, bollocks to that. I don't worry about the character having to level up. So if at the beginning of a game session or end of a game session, I don't concern myself with, is the character about to level up? None of that comes into play. I don't worry about that sort of thing either. I don't wait for them to be in a position where they're in downtime, so they're not currently in a dungeon or adventuring or anything like that. So downtime. I don't insist on there having an opportunity for downtime to explain the retraining process. And then lastly, which I know has started to be applied to the Unearthed Arcana, Jeremy Crawford's already talked about it, how they wait until the ability advancement. I don't worry about ability advancement. None of that means anything to me. I can live with it. My Dungeons & Dragons game will not come to a crashing halt. Nothing bad will happen. The earth won't stop rotating or anything like that, so I don't concern myself with that. Now, I want to make this clear. This is my application of retraining. If you want to set limits yourself and for your players, that's up to you. But my way has fewer Dungeon Master headaches, which is why I'm giving you the heads up about essentially the things I don't worry about, because I know people will ask me questions about it. The other thing I don't do is I don't check the players' character sheets for cheating. I have already explained my view on players cheating at the game. It will always come out in the wash. If somebody is cheating with their character sheet and making adjustments that they shouldn't be doing, or put stuff on there, it will come out in the wash. Somebody will find out, whether it's me or another player, and I just don't really allow that sort of thing in my game. Eventually those players just don't wind up at my table, because if I can't trust them to do the right thing with their character sheet, why am I playing with them? Certainly legitimate mistakes I have no issue with, but I don't go checking character sheets. The only time that I feel like it's necessary to check a character sheet with regard to retraining or even creating a completely new character is when it's a new player and they are not aware of all of the ins and outs and the requirements for making a legal character within the group that I'm playing with. Now, as I said, this is not my own personal idea. Wizards of the Coast, their design team, provided this method of retraining for level 1 to 4 through Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League gameplay. Their open public games that they run, those sorts of things. And when I saw this, when I was a Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League local coordinator, when I saw this and they were applying it from level 1 to 4, I thought, well, actually, I could apply that right through all the levels in my own games and it would solve so many problems. So that's exactly what I have done. So if you thought that Fred had suddenly come up with some sort of magic pill or sage advice that nobody else had ever thought of, that's just not the case. Remember, I'm just a normal person. Okay, reasons that players want to change their character, they don't really matter. I know a lot of people get hung up on, but why is the player wanting to change their character? I couldn't give a rat's butt about it. Honestly, I don't care. All I want is to ensure that my players like playing the character they're playing, and I've had many different types of players at my table, and they all have different ways of playing the game and different motivations for the types of characters they play and how they play their character. So to make sure I can adjust how I operate, I don't worry about that sort of thing. If you are concerned about that, then I'm going to list a whole bunch of different reasons, because I know you'll want to know what to do with and why a player might want to change their character. I'm going to talk about that, but I want to make it clear, I don't care. Not at all. Alright, so the first one is often quite common, and that is the players unexpectedly become bored with their character. They thought that the character they made would be something they would be interested in. They've been playing it for a little while, maybe a couple of sessions, and they've suddenly realized that it was a boring character. They should have built something else. They should have created something else. Or they've been playing the same character for like 6 to 12 months. They're like level 12 or 10 or whatever it is, depending on how far they've been fast they've been advancing, and they're starting to get bored with the character and they want to just go and play something else because that character doesn't feel like it's giving them the outlet that they look for. Because let's get real, most people who play Dungeons and Dragons play it to escape reality, and if it's not fun and it's not entertaining and interesting and it's getting boring, then they go and use their time for something else. Number 2 is new toys and options become available, which initially when Dungeons and Dragons 5e came out, there weren't really that many options available. You really just had the player's handbook and that was it. But as time has passed, we now have the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which I think is appalling. We have the Player's Companion. We have a few options in Volo's Guide to Monsters. There's Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And then we've got Mordenkainen, the supplement that came out not so long ago. And there are a few options and accessories, not a lot, in some of the pre-made published adventures that Wizards of the Coast has put out, which you can also delve into. And so sometimes it's just about, okay, there's a new toy, a new option, it's become available, and rather than wait the year or year and a half or whatever it is before I get a chance to play a new character, I'd like to implement it now. So that's sometimes the case. I don't have a problem with that. I understand that. Okay, it is unfortunate, but sometimes a player will make a disastrous mistake in the way that they were applying the roles, their understanding of how they worked together, what they were trying to do. Particularly if they have a very mechanical focus, it's not so much an issue if they're more focused on role-playing, the social aspect to their character, or exploration. Often that's not really affected because, as we know, most characters in Dungeons and Dragons are very much focused on combat. So sometimes they just make appalling mistakes, and there's multiple reasons for why that happened. So I don't worry about those sorts of things either. If you feel that's necessary, then so be it. A player can also realize that the character does not work the way they expected. This is sort of going back to the mistakes. When I say mistakes, sometimes the mistakes we are talking about were, I'm not even going to go into it because they're really, really strange. And when I say multiple reasons, I'm sure a few of you know what I'm talking about. But sometimes players realize that characters just don't work the way they expected. There's a misunderstanding with their intention and the actual implementation of that character, and so they want to make an adjustment. So I don't stop them from making adjustments to their character because of those sorts of reasons. This one is quite amusing, and that is a mismatch between the character and the campaign you're running. The player initially was sort of indicated by the Dungeon Master, the player got the impression they were playing Lord of the Rings style game, but only to find out that the Dungeon Master could only reveal so much or didn't reveal enough information. Sometimes Dungeon Masters can't reveal enough information because it would give too much of the story away and too much of the surprise away. And so they have to hold back a little bit of stuff. So that's not really the fault of the Dungeon Master or the player. It's just a mismatch between the actual character and the group they're playing with and the campaign. Particularly if you think you're playing Lord of the Rings style game and the Dungeon Master is running Winnie the Pooh. So just a mismatch in that way. And then I would say the last one that comes up, which I think probably most people have the strongest reaction to. I don't worry about it nowadays because there are so many people, nerds and geeks will always focus on those sorts of aspects of the game, and if you're going to allow people who like the crunchy bits of the game, the mechanical side of it, then you need to expect that they're going to have this reaction. This is when players want to test all of the options in the game, literally everything. It's not just good enough for them to look at it, read it. They'll often be able to memorize all the rules. They can read it once and now they know how it works and interplays with another rule. And so they want to try it all out and actually test it. It's not good enough for them to just sit there with a spreadsheet and figure out all of the mathematical probabilities behind the game. We're talking about our power gamer. So the power gamers, you'll find, like the concept of retraining because it doesn't affect their ability to try new things. So 6 different reasons, all slightly different. I don't worry about any of them. I honestly don't think that they are good enough reasons to stop people from changing and retraining. Okay, let's have a talk about some of the problems that can occur. Here's the first thing. It's great if players say that they want to play a different character. It's good because if they tell the Dungeon Master, now the Dungeon Master knows that they're not really interested in playing that character, they want a different character. But sometimes the players don't tell the Dungeon Master, and this can cause significant problems. And I will go into some of those problems because they are massive as it happens. When it comes to a player coming to a Dungeon Master and saying, look, I would like to play a different character. Sometimes the Dungeon Master will say, yes, that's fine, make a new character. If that happens enough times from enough players, they start to get a bit weary of allowing people to do that sort of thing, bringing in a completely new character. The fear is of the constant rollover of completely new cast members or characters can be quite frustrating for how you actually implement and run a campaign over a long span. For a Dungeon Master, this tends to mean that the reaction to a player saying, I would like to play a different character is their reaction is going to tend to be no, you can't. When your character dies, then you can. Now here's the trap for a dungeon master, particularly when they view the application and the use of characters this way, is the players now know exactly what they need to do. Now if you've ever watched the Game of Thrones, you know that the cast of characters has changed a lot. There's been a lot of character death. I want to explain to you what's going on here, and also a few characters that just sort of weren't interesting enough and they just came out of circulation. Now that the player knows that they can't change their character unless their character dies, you get the new suicidal character who forces the issue for the dungeon master and the party, and they can get their character killed for sure because they're trying to make sure it dies so they can play a new character. They can also affect everybody else at the table. That means other characters could also die. You could even wind up with a total party kill or TPK, and this is because unless the other players know that that player is deliberately trying to commit suicide with that character, they might try to save them, because that's the thing that makes sense to them in terms of how they would run their character. The other problem is when you lose your character, when you deliberately sabotage the combat by making sure you put yourself in a position where your character is wiped out, that means the party is weaker, making the combat encounter much more difficult to actually be successful with and survive. And therefore, again, we go back to character death and the TPK. So those are the things I try to avoid because I've seen it happen. I've done it myself as a player. I've seen other players do it at the table when the Dungeon Master says, no, you can't make any changes. When your character dies, then maybe you can make a new character and do something like that. So don't fall into that trap and wind up with a whole lot of suicidal characters at your table because you wouldn't let them adjust something. When players run characters they don't like, it causes all sorts of troublesome problems in a wide range of ways, which will completely blow your mind. You'll spend far too much time trying to figure out how to solve these problems, or jumping onto the internet and talking to somebody on YouTube or the Facebook or wherever you go, these community forums, Reddit, trying to get advice on how to solve a whole bunch of problems because, one, that player is no longer motivated to play that character. So suddenly they just don't seem to be very interested and they're on their phone more. Or I've talked about the suicidal character, but there are other ways that players can mess things up by sabotaging the game. And that's the sort of behavior that can happen as they get resentful and frustrated with the fact they're stuck with something they don't like. And I want to make it clear, this is why I implemented this rule, because it eliminated so many problems. So when I present you with this variant rule, I'm serious about everything I say, and I'm serious about removing all of those boundaries and restrictions, because I'm all about reducing the Dungeon Master hassle and letting the players have their choice. And ultimately, I want them to have a good time, but I also want my life to be easier. And this makes my life so much easier. So trust me, it's worth giving it a go. Now, if you found this video useful, fantastic. I actually have hundreds of videos for Dungeon Masters and players that provide really useful advice. And you're welcome to go and check out those videos if you like. I have a series called The Lazy Dungeon Master, which you might also find useful. I actually have a series of videos on variant roles that I use in Dungeons and Dragons that I talk about that you might also want to check out if you're inclined to sort of look at that sort of thing. Now, if you want to support the channel, so I keep doing videos like this, you can do that on Patreon. You can do that by using affiliate links down in the description to the book depository and Amazon. You can also buy merchandise from me, or you can just watch my videos. There's no reason why. You can just watch more of my videos. That always helps me out a lot. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. Let's talk about this topic of retraining. And I specifically want to talk, if people want to, about the current unearthed arcana for the variant player handbook, or player options that is coming out. And they did talk about retraining in a little bit. It's a much more tame view of the application of what I'm talking about. And it's been done for a very specific purpose. So I really want to talk about that because I feel it's an important topic to talk about, considering I know what Jeremy Crawford and the design team are trying to do. Okay, so I'm going to try to get through your questions really quick, but what I want to do is I want to talk about unearthed arcana. I want to talk about retraining and what they presented in the unearthed arcana. Now, you might have noticed that they have started to put forward some playtest rules for retraining that are baked into the game. They still require sign-off by the group playing Dungeons and Dragons. It also requires them to sort of have a dungeon master who will allow this variant rule to be applied. They have provided a number of restrictions with regard to retraining a character, and the reason they've done that is because they believe that this is the first step in getting people to take it on board, because they know that the problem does arise quite often. It's quite common to have players who want to change things. So as a result of that, Jeremy Crawford and the design team have provided some options that are just testing the waters. They made a watered down version, I'm sure of it, made a watered down version. If enough people take it on board, we'll see another expansion of retraining that starts to eliminate a lot of the things that I was talking about before. But they're not going to present that as a play test option or even as the final product to the general public, because it would be so unpopular. And they have to sell the books and they have to produce stuff that people like. And that's the reason why they do unearthed arcana, is they make stuff that people are invested in using. And if you make a variant rule that nobody's interested in, then that's a problem, right? It doesn't so much matter with the Dungeon Master Guide, because it's already been printed out. It's already been published. But new books, that's a different story. Okay. All right, so let's go through the chat. I'm going to try to do my best to get through here fairly quickly. If you have a question that is unrelated to the topic of retraining characters, then so be it. You can put that in there. I don't care if it's a player question or a Dungeon Master question. I will do my best to answer those questions. If you have a question or feedback on retraining yourself and how it's worked for you, by all means, provide that in the live chat so we can talk about it. Okay, let's see, are my eyes working better today, or do I need the glasses? The glasses, and that is about the same. So that's kind of useless to wear the glasses if they're not doing anything. Okay, Kanoko, hello Kanoko. Move to BitChut. Yeah, the problem with that BitChut is not something I can actually make an income off, and it would take, considering I have thousands of, 1,000 plus videos, to remove everything to BitChut would be very difficult. I know that AJ Pickett has done that, but you've got to understand that even AJ has fewer videos than I do, and he's done every monster in the monster manual, so that's like close to 400 monsters. Now he's doing stuff that's not in the monster manual, so that's going to be a real problem. I'm going to do my best to save the stuff that people seem to be really interested in, and I'll try to back that up. So if I have to move things, I will. I'm not going to move things unless I absolutely have to. We'll see. Nobody knows whether they're going to be safe or not, and I suspect nobody will be. Okay, Scott, what do you got here? YouTube is flaking out at the new year or something, Fred. Yeah, it's pretty much going to self-implode. I don't want to go into too much detail because there are so many videos that talk about that right now, and unless you're a creator, it's not really something you'd be particularly interested in. But yeah, you need to be, things are going to change. I would imagine that I would go and watch all the videos on your channels that you really enjoy now, because who knows what will happen to them, particularly with channels that are quite small, like my own, or smaller than me, because they may not survive after that, because the terms of service are going to change, and then it's all, who knows what will happen, and it won't be good. Okay, Sector Black, love YouTube. They screw up and pass the consequence to creators. Yes, they have done that. Yes, that's right. Caleb, what do you got here? I just want to say I love your videos. Thank you, Caleb. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Scott, what do you got here? I allow your house rule up to 5th level. After 5th, you're committed. I understand exactly where you're coming from, Scott. I would like to present a case to you to see what your reaction is. When you play beyond 5th level, quite often the progression from level 5 through to level 6, and as you go up in levels, gets longer and longer. That means that when you're playing at higher levels, you're playing at high level for a long time. At lower levels, like level 1 to 5 or level 1 to 4, that time frame is very short. So that means they are committed once they make a decision about their character and how it's going to work. They are now committed for a very long time, and they can't change it. Because, like a Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League, level 1 to 4, and in your case level 1 to 5, is open. You would think that that is the time to allow people to retrain, but it's actually much more important to allow players to change their character at higher level, because that's where they can make the biggest mistakes and errors, and also where the product of boredom and confusion can occur. So all the things that I've talked about, they are much more likely to happen at higher level play, which is why you might be better, honestly, if you're going to have retraining, to allow retraining from level 5 onward, rather than worry about it from level 1 to 5, because that is the high risk area for gameplay for a player. And it's very easy to do, and once they've made that decision, there's not much they can do about it. I hope I have presented my case in a way that makes sense. I know the concept of allowing retraining from level 1 to 4 or level 1 to 5 is to allow for newbies to get to grips with the game. That's why Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League allows it. And because they are wanting to bring in new people, that's why they've put it there. Okay, Darren, love the Rick and Morty pick, Fred. I'm glad you did, because I felt like it was certainly worth putting up. I have actually ordered the Rick and Morty box set, and you just said I got Rick and Morty starter set yesterday. Cool. Darren, I'm jealous. It'll probably show up next year for me. I'm in New Zealand. It's November. The likelihood of anything showing up this side of Christmas is unlikely. It'll probably show up like a month after Christmas. I also put in an order for the Creature Codex from Kobold Press, Creature Codex Layers for Kobold Press, Descent into Avernus. I got that pre-ordered. I don't know if that'll make it. The new Eberron book that has been that's been ordered. I'm waiting for that to show up. It's nice when you have a steady job and an income that can support it. I don't know how long that'll last, but we'll see. Nothing lasts forever. Okay, Scott. How is it, Darren? Good on. Yeah, yep. Okay, Darren's talking to Scott. YouTube will be cancelling channels that are not commercially viable on the 10th of December. That's exactly right. Hi, Joe. How's it going? Not sure yet, Scott. Doing an unboxing video tomorrow. Yep. Yeah, I'll be interested, Darren, to see what you've got. Once it goes up, that is. I've already watched a couple of people unbox it. But honestly, it's the adventure inside that I'm much more interested in, because it's really the same thing that you got from the Dungeons & Dragons Essentials kit is in the Rick and Morty box. That's it's just got a Rick and Morty theme to it, but pretty much everything's the same. It's the adventure I want to know about. I hear that it's supposed to be quite wacky. Yep, exactly. What sucks about the YouTube thing is who gets to determine if a channel is commercially viable. Who decides? Well, YouTube does. That's what that's all about. Okay, let's keep going. Now, like I said, if you have questions about Dungeons and Dragons and it's not related to the topic for today, which is retraining, that's fine. Just put hashtag Fred or hashtag question or something like that, or @Fred, so that it stands out to me and I don't miss it. Okay, my eyes are getting old. Sector Black, some out of touch pod person without the ability to laugh. Oh, possibly. Darren. Plus, there's a new law in the US called COPPA. Yes, that will protect kids online. So YouTube will also be deleting videos and channels that are directly directed at children, which is totally up to interpretation. You know, the funny thing about COPPA though is that if you are under 13 or under, you're not supposed to be on YouTube. One of the terms of service for use on YouTube, that might be the new one that's coming out, maybe not the current one, is that you have to be, you can't be 13 or younger. So, which actually kind of to a large extent makes a lot of sense. But they are eliminating a huge chunk of their market, and I no doubt the younger audience watch more YouTube than the rest of us have time to. Darren, yeah, like Dango Doodles, Zibashi, yes, Puffin Forest, yes, they're all going to have probably some big problems. Already, a few of them are starting to put up a statement that says this video is not intended for children, but that's not going to help, not in the slightest. All animated and probably default classed as kid target audiences. Yeah. All right, let's move past all that. I'm going to need a drink of water anyway. Yeah, so yes, basically somebody, well, it's not going to be somebody, it's going to be a machine that will determine that. Scott, let's say Fred does a video about Stranger Things box set. Someone thinks that it violates the whatever, and bang, no more channel. Sound about right? Yes, that's potentially what's likely to happen. This discussion's turning into a COPPA one, and the current changes to YouTube by the locks. Also gaming in general, yes. That's the thing. No one knows what the criteria will be. Yeah, it's very, very broad. Yes, Scott, it is terrible. Like I said, make sure you go watch the videos on the channels that you want to watch, that you've been wanting to watch, because they may not be around after the 10th of December. They've left the guidelines nebulous, yes, on purpose, so that they have everything covered. Yep, that's pretty much it. Yeah, this is back to the kids content. The platform is for kids. Okay. Yeah, they might make a YouTube for kids only, but again, nobody's going to make content for a YouTube kids channel where they can't make money. And a lot of the things that people use to get kids to watch and create money require cookies and tracking and personalized ads, and none of which they'll be allowed to do. So no, you'll find most people will stop making kids content. So that's what the new terms of service hoopla was all about. Yeah, it does suck. Fred's got some good rules going on to bring us back on topic. Yeah, I'm trying to get you back on topic. Okay, Sector Black. I see these 19 videos marked not for kids. Well, there is a visible, and I don't know what that means. Or can I just not read it? Yeah, okay. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, the FTC determines you have mislabeled these videos. Yeah, mislabeling a video is going to be very costly. It'll pretty much put people out of business. Or if they weren't even making enough money to cover a real business, then they will, I don't know, who knows probably going to prison. Okay, Darren, but who's going to go to the... okay, we're still talking about that sort of stuff. Okay, trying to work my way past all of the kids' stuff. Personally, I think that after 5th or so, characters can become so complicated and revamping can be a nightmare. It's actually not so much a nightmare, it's actually a nightmare because you need to revamp. That's what I've found, and I've run games from level 1 to 20, and it's at higher level where people start to make mistakes and realise their error. And it's not usually at the very beginning of the creation of a character because there's not a lot going on. Me too, that's why I house rule. Many changes are acceptable until 5th. Yep, okay. Plus it has potential to mess up a good story. If it is something the player must change, it would have them make a separate character. Yep, well, you can, Scott, but I've pointed out my rationale for not doing it that way. And retire the PC and make him an NPC. Yes, you can do that. That's also acceptable. And I mean, you're running the game, so whatever your group and your players accept and whatever you want, that's going to how it's going to be. All the spells to bring back a PC from death have a willing spirit. If the player says no, the PC does not come back. Yes, that's true. So once the PC has failed 3 death saving throws and the player can positively prevent it from getting back up. Okay. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Fred. I know the spells exist, and I've talked about them before ad nauseum, but I don't know what your point is. So I'm reading down. Hopefully, the point is made somewhere along the line. Where'd my comment go? There was no bad words, Darren. I do not know. See, there's another issue. Yes. With the new changes, a channel that is designated as child-friendly or for children, comments and feedback in live chat aren't possible. In fact, you can't run a live stream. It's just not allowed, which is a terrible shame. You know, my community is very much built on live streaming. F. Hubba. I like to role-play the dead PC meeting their death of choice. Start talking to them, and then the other players start the raise dead. Okay. The deity says they are people calling you to whatever. Do wish to go. Yeah. Yep. So okay, so you're presenting how you deal with character death. Retraining, is that part of what you're talking about? I feel like that's just character death you're coming. Summit, hi, how's it going? Hopefully you got your name right. At Fred, okay, what's this, Darren? I'll give the adventure a good look for you. Thank you, that would be awesome. Could be a long time before I get it. Okay, Mark, you had a question. How would you measure time in a mega dungeon? Okay, so first off, Mark, you measure time in whatever way is going to work for you, and you measure time in whatever way your players don't get bored and decide they've had enough of your mega dungeon. Remember, you're not dealing with real time, you're dealing with the passage of time in a fictitious fantasy world. So you can use anything you like. Personally, I've run mega dungeons before. They are problematic. I find them difficult for players to get their head around. It requires a significant amount of drawing on my part because I can't just let them just try and draw it out because it won't work. And I've done that before, but often I will still wind up having to draw out so they know kind of where they are. So yeah, the time and passing of time in a mega dungeon, really completely up to you, Mark. I know that's not really an answer, but all I would say is change it as long as the story is moving forward and you're having a good time and your players are enjoying the process, then it's all fine. Anton, how's it going? Your equipment item series was really informative. Will you expand on this? Weapons, armor, it had a new Okay, what? It had a new train of thought in their uses. Okay, so the Dungeons and Dragons Adventuring Gear videos that I've been doing, the ones you're talking about, Anton, there will be more of them, I hope. Would I be expanding them to the use of armor and weapons? Absolutely not. And the rationale, I don't know if people have noticed, but you'll notice I'm not doing that many rules videos anymore. Okay? That's quite deliberate on my part. I'm trying to steer the Dungeon Master away from, and players, away from just looking at stuff in their adventure books and in their books and whatever they thought was the right way to go, or the traditional way, the correct way to do it. I'm trying to provide you with options. It's all about options, not necessarily the right way, because even though I've made it clear what my bias and how I would do this, nobody is going to use the retraining characters in Dungeons and Dragons 5e the way I have described it. I have broken down everything and so this will allow you to decide when a circumstance is useful to you and when it isn't. So a lot of my videos, particularly the variant rules and the advice for Dungeon Masters, is to give you options. Things that you can think about, stuff you will throw away, that's fine, and stuff you might use. Some people are using what I've suggested. I know a few people are using my group initiative idea. I know a few people are using the no initiative idea and stuff like that. And then with players, I'm trying to get players away from looking at the character sheet. Everything is determined by what my race abilities are and features, what my class features are, what my background features and abilities and skills are, what my numbers say, what spells I have. I want players and also Dungeon Masters to start thinking of the game as a game where there are unlimited options rather than that there are limitations, because, and I'm quite annoyed with the design team at Wizards of the Coast, is that Dungeons and Dragons 5e is becoming like 3.5 or version 3. It is even becoming like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which had so many variant rules and was so complicated nobody could really understand how to play it. And I know because I had those books and I know how difficult it was to figure out, and I only used a fraction of the stuff that was there. But we're now looking at sort of a situation where there's player bloat, and as long as the design team insists on codifying an ability for this and ability for that, it eliminates the Dungeon Master making a rules call, making a determination on how to go about doing this best, and it means restricting it. So it doesn't mean that all characters can do this, because you're now stepping on the toes of the ability and some other supplement. And honestly, I knew it was going to come. I was hoping it wouldn't. I had a friend who said, Fred, the same thing will happen. It happened to Pathfinder. Pathfinder followed 3.5, even version 2 of Pathfinder's doing the same thing. They're all codifying everything and locking everything down and trying to turn it into a fair game, which really is the mentality of the Dungeon Master against the player. And that's not really where I'm at. So I don't do a lot of rules videos. And if they are of a very different nature than they used to be. Okay, now questions. Here are we going. Okay, Joe, Fred, I'm with you. If they aren't having fun, I'll tell my players I can work a new character into the story arc. Bottom line is everyone is having fun playing a game. Yeah, that can work. But what I found, Joe, if I insist on them bringing in a completely new character, there are some players that get bored very quickly, and so their rotation of characters is just a bit too quick, and so you wind up with so many new characters coming into the game that it's actually disruptive. And so I decided, well, actually, ultimately, as long as it's the same name and I don't have to learn a new character name and then figure out, well, Are you playing a paladin today? Or no, on a hang, that's right, you were playing a rogue. No, you're ranger now. This is just not really where I'm at. So hence, I did it so, and I structured how I do retraining based on those players who change their characters a lot. And because if you play every week, it can take anywhere from up to a year or longer to actually complete a campaign, if it's from like level 1 to 10 or 15. Level 20, it's like 2 years, possibly a bit more than 2 years, to get through an entire campaign with people. That's a long time to be stuck with a character you're not really interested in. And for those people who like a lot of change and they get bored easily, it's a bit problematic. Hence why I opened things up. Okay, but you don't have to. What do you got here, Fred? If the player has no cooperation in getting rid of an unwanted PC, they can make sure it dies and fails death saving throws by saying he rolls a 1. Yeah, well, you can do that, Fred. But like I said, I pointed out that when you eliminate one member from the party because you want them to die, in the middle of a combat, you put everybody else who's playing in that combat at risk because they don't have your character at the table to help them. But you don't have to do it my way. And I know, Fred Hubbard, that you won't do it my way. You'll do it your way. Darren, going to have to take off in a few minutes. Great video, Fred. I'll say goodbye to everyone. Okay, I'll see you later, Darren. At Fred, I was afraid of bloat in 5e2. Hope it doesn't get too bad. I think it's pretty much getting there. Gotta run. Okay, I'll see you later. Okay, I think that's going to cover it, everything. I'm burning rubbish, so I need to go and check on that. Make sure everything should be under control. The house is not on fire, so that's a good sign. So hopefully this was useful to you, and you got something out of it. As I said, you do not have to do everything that I've suggested. You can take pieces and parts of it. It's completely up to you. So wherever you are in the world, whether it's the morning, afternoon, night, early morning, look after your family and your friends and yourself. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.